The village was abruptly thrown into total chaos. Uchiha Fugaku stared at the cloud of dust rising up off in the distance from the roof of the Konoha Military Police Force headquarters, his face grim. His aides, the best and brightest of the Uchiha clan, stood around him, waiting. "Oh, that's..." White-haired Yashiro murmured from his left. Fugaku had already discerned the cause of the commotion with his own eyes. Nine Tails! This from Inabi at his right. Long black hair pulled up, Inabi desperately tried to stop himself from trembling in fear. Fugaku cast sidelong glances at his subordinates, their fear on full display, and then stared resolutely at the reality before them. No mistake, it's Nine Tails. Out of the dust cloud rising up in the center of the village crawled Nine Tails, writhing like serpents. The tails converged on the body of a burnt orange beast, a sinister fox roaring as if to swallow up the full moon hanging in the sky. A beast of legend, here to wreak havoc on this world. Send a unit to the scene immediately. I'll go too. Lord Fugaku, you intend to set out yourself? Yashiro's voice quivered as he asked the question. Of course, Fugaku shouted, even as his eyes remained fixed on Nine Tails. He could hear bellowing and shrieking from every corner of the village. Given that the figure of the monster was no doubt visible from all areas of Konoha, even places not yet under attack wouldn't be exempt from the confusion once the people there caught sight of Nine Tails. This might be the biggest disaster to befall the village since its founding. Do you think I can just sit back and watch at a time like this? Me, the chief of the military police force? But going near Nine Tails meant risking death. Some of the ninja hurrying to the scene had likely already been sacrificed. It was no small wonder Yashiro was scared. I have never once begrudged my life to do my job. Chief, tears blurred Yashiro's thin eyes. The only thing that can control Nine Tails is the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. If we don't hurry, stopping it will be impossible. Chief! His aide Tekka appeared, panting as though he had run up the stairs. From the ghostly mien of his capable subordinate, Fugaku guessed that something alarming had happened. What is it? Instructions have come down from top brass. The police are instructed to strengthen the village defenses. What did you say? Fugaku glared at Tekka, doubting his own ears. Cleverly grasping his superior's anger, Tekka gave voice to his own supposition. Only the Sharingan can control the Nine Tails. Brass likely has misgivings. Are you saying that this commotion is our fault? Yashiro shouted. Fugaku understood so well that it hurt. The Uchiha clan was part of Konohagakure. They had no reason to release a creature like Ninetales and bring about this chaos. If whoever was controlling Ninetales avoided just their own home, they would obviously soon be a suspect. No one in the clan would do something so foolish. Not to mention that the raging beast before his eyes was rampaging indiscriminately. If a member of the clan had indeed summoned it, they had basically called disaster down upon their own self as well. At the very least, it could not be the work of any Uchiha currently living in the village. Tell them. Understood. He spat bitterly at Tekka. Chief! Yashiro drew in closer. Fugaku nodded wordlessly. Before turning toward the stairs leading to the lower floors, he was worried about Itachi and Sasuke at the house, but right now his duty came first. Itachi! Mom! Thank God you're safe! Mikoto wrapped her arms tightly around Itachi, who was standing in the lane in front of the house, holding Sasuke. I didn't want you to worry if we ran away, and then you came home, so I waited for you. His mother nodded, tears spilling down her face. Eyes that had been narrowed with the tension of having to protect his little brother relaxed to some degree. But this was fleeting. When he noticed something closing in from behind his mother, those eyes quickly regained their original grimness. Mom! He practically threw Sasuke to his mother, and then he flew. A boulder tossed into the air by Ninetales shattered near their house, and the pieces danced above their heads. One chunk was falling toward his mother's back. He looked down at her, clutching Sasuke to her chest. Her surprised eyes chased after him. He could see the question there, her wondering just what was happening to make Itachi leap up so suddenly. The rock was enormous, large enough to easily crush a mother and her two children. I'll protect you, he murmured. He clenched his fist tightly. The physical arts of the ninja were not just about strength. He might have been a small child of 5 years, body as yet undeveloped, but as long as he managed to knead his chakra properly, he could smash even this enormous rock. He brandished his fist high in the air. Chakra filled his arm, covering it in faint blue flames. The rock slammed into Itachi's fist and exploded with a shriek. Even a child could effortlessly destroy boulders as long as they simply kept up their ninja training. Showered in a rain of pebbles, he landed soundlessly on the ground. Are you all right? He asked, turning around. Unable to conceal her surprise, his mother stared at Itachi with saucer-like eyes. His mother was a Jonin, which was precisely why she was amazed at his instantaneous action. It's dangerous here. Let's get to where everyone else is. Right. As if pulled to her feet by his voice, his mother stood and Itachi raced over to take her hand. You haven't even started at the academy yet, but you can already do something like that? You really are your father's son, She was no doubt praising him, but it wasn't time for that. A sense of duty filled his heart. He had to get his mother and brother to a safe place. All around him, he could hear the shrieks of girls and the shouts of boys mixed with the roar of destruction. It was overwhelming. People running around trying to escape, bleeding. A man who had lost his arm yelling at a fellow ninja. A young woman staring blankly at a mountain of rubble, like a marionette with the strings cut. A child wailing loudly, trying to rouse a now cold mother. In the core of his brain, Itachi heard an ear-splitting screeching. They hadn't actually run that far, and yet he was having trouble breathing. Overlaid on the scene before his eyes was the battlefield he had seen when he was 4. War. A dull pain raced deep into his eyes. Just like that moment on the battlefield, waves of power pulsed behind his eyeballs. He felt like the world was dyed in crimson for a moment, but the sensation quickly subsided. Itachi? His mother called to him from behind, having noticed something strange in her son. "I'm all right, Mom." He ran desperately. He ran to escape the massive violence of Ninetales. From the bottom of his heart, he prayed for the strength to stop war. He wanted to be a strong ninja. Four figures were lined up in the conference room of the Hokage residence. The third Hokage, Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo from the Anbu, and Homura and Koharu from the council. The sudden calamity under control, an exhausted Hiruzen looked at his 3 comrades. The wrinkles on his face deepened now and opened his mouth. The fourth and his wife, Kushina, gave their lives to seal the Ninetales. They saved the village. Listening with a sour look, Danzo picked up where the former Hokage left off. But Konoha took a devastating blow, the likes of which we didn't see even during the Great War. Unless we rebuild immediately, the other villages might take this opportunity to attack. This from Councillor Homura. Hiruzen nodded slightly and continued in a grave tone. "I was planning to make arrangements for that right away. And here, there is a condition I would very much like to see put in place." The right half of his head covered in bandages, Danzo's exposed left eye glittered cruelly. Hiruzen met this icy gaze silently, a question in his own eyes. "I want to move the residences of the Uchiha clan on the edge of the village," Danzo said. "What?" Hiruzen glared at him, brow furrowed. Danzo didn't flinch, but instead continued dispassionately. "You are aware that only the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan can control the Ninetales. Are you saying it was an Uchiha who summoned Nine Tails? I am, Danzo asserted, and Hiruzen held his breath. The two counselors watched over the fierce back and forth with closed mouths. The treatment of the Uchihas during the Great War, Fugaku refusing to comment when the fort was decided on. Dissatisfaction with the village has been growing among the Uchiha clan in recent years. I don't agree. Members of the Foundation have been looking carefully into the movement of the Uchihas. It is a fact that the Uchihas are dissatisfied. That's a long-standing, that's not all. The self-assured Danzo cut Hiruzen off. Those who lived through the Great War are beginning to despair that even a rare genius like Wicked-Eye Fugaku must resign himself to being the head of the military police force. That disappointment with the village will someday become a serious dissatisfaction and lead to an attack on Konoha. Still, that said, don't you think you're being a bit hasty in declaring Nine Tails incident the fault of the Uchihas? That is not the kind of thing you can simply leave be just because you have no positive proof, Hiruzen. Listen, the only thing that can control Nine Tails is the Uchiha Sharingan. That is a fact. Hiruzen faltered. At any rate, we must gather the Uchiha clan together in one spot and push them to the edge of the village. And we should do it now, while we can do it in the name of town planning after Nine Tails' attack. Faced with the relentlessness of a man who embodied the darkness of the anvil, the other three could only remain silent. Itachi was satisfied with their new home. They were a fair distance from the center of the village, but Nakano's shrine, where the clan originated, was within the compound, and best of all, they were right on the edge of the village, so there was green all around them. Finding places to train was no trouble at all, and if he just walked a little, he could cross the border of the village, beyond which rugged hills rolled across the landscape. He also thought it was a good, quiet place for his baby brother to grow up. However, the adults apparently felt differently. Ever since it was decided that rather than being scattered all over the village, the members of the clan would be brought together and a new compound built, a stream of young ninja had been coming and going from his father's place. Discrimination, persecution, false accusations. Itachi heard only reactionary words from his father's room, and he was well aware of the reason the adults didn't think this move was a happy one. One of their clan was suspected to be the perpetrator of the Nine Tails' attack, and as a result, they had been pushed as a group to the edge of the village and not permitted even a word to try to clear themselves. Itachi was not surprised at all that his father and the others were outraged. But once a thing was decided, That had to be the end of it, didn't it? The clan was together at last, so the healthier choice was to think instead about trying to make the compound environment even better. The village was a disaster after the destruction inflicted by Ninetales. It wasn't just the Uchiha clan going through difficult times. A great number of people had seen loved ones pass on ahead of them. Many had lost their homes and had no idea what they were going to do. Shouldn't the Uchiha clan consider themselves lucky, given that this compound was set up for them before measures were taken for a lot of other people who had lost everything in the catastrophe? Itachi couldn't contain his despair at the unrelenting dissatisfaction of these adults. "All right, I'm going." His father's voice came from behind. Itachi was sitting eating supper with his mother and Sasuke. But of course, his little brother still couldn't eat solid food. Perched on his high chair, Sasuke bobbed his head from side to side, having only recently grown strong enough to hold it up. He turned big, round eyes on his brother and stared curiously at Itachi lifting rice from his bowl to his mouth. This boy is putting something white in his mouth on long sticks. What on earth do you suppose he's doing? The baby's gaze was so intense that Itachi almost wondered if he wasn't thinking grown-up thoughts like this. The baby wasn't yet a year old, but he had strong eyes that clearly communicated his thoughts and will. "What about supper?" his mother asked, looking past Itachi. Itachi took this as an invitation to turn around and caught a glimpse of his father's stern face through the tiny gap in the sliding door. "I'll eat out, and I'll be back late, so you go ahead to bed without me." "All right, we'll see you later then." "Bye," he added to his mother's farewell, and his father's cool gaze pierced him. Unlike his brother's eyes, his father's gave away no hint of what he was thinking. "Next year is the academy. You make sure you keep training hard." "All right." "Uh-huh." Sasuke raised his voice unintelligibly in imitation of Itachi. His father looked at the baby and nodded slightly before disappearing completely behind the sliding door. The family in the kitchen started eating again. What exactly are the grown-ups doing so late at night? Itachi tossed the question at his only friend. Shisui stared off at the Hokage monument in the distance, a loose smile curling up the corners of his mouth. They were sitting on a cliff outside the village, in a spot only they knew about. Before the cliff rising up perpendicular to the ground, there was a river that meandered along from behind the Hokage monument and flowed out of the village. By the time it reached Itachi and Shisui, the water flowed much faster and deeper than at its starting point in the village. "Armageddon," Shisui said, eyes still focused off in the distance. He turned toward the quietly listening Itachi and continued softly. "So I go to adults' meetings?" "Huh?" They regularly meet at Nakano's shrine. Itachi wanted to ask what exactly Shisui was talking about, but he was afraid and no words came out. Shisui looked down. It's something you don't have to know about yet. Uneasy, Itachi stared at his friend as he averted his eyes. A heavy airs hanging over the clan. Let it be a guess, Itachi murmured over and over in his heart.